Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to my good friend, Secretary of State Ashcroft. Great to see you. Today's hearing topic is very interesting and, quite frankly, very telling. Right after the Select Committee on the Coronavirus was formed, the Republican members asked the chairman to hold a hearing on the origin of the virus, which, of course, is China and the CCP's actions that allowed the virus to spread to the rest of the world. However, we were told the Select Committee on the Coronavirus somehow lacks a mandate to review the origin of the virus. Fast forward a couple of months, and the subcommittee that is so strictly limited that it lacks even the ability to discuss where the virus came from, now has jurisdiction over elections. If there ever was a question as to whether this committee is 100% politically focused, today's hearing is making that crystal clear. This is not election. This is not about election security, but about my colleagues on the other side's attempt to spread fear and sow doubt in the results of this year's elections before a single vote has been cast. It's about spreading misinformation, conspiracy theories, and manufactured crises, ranging from the supposed sabotage of the Postal Service to the dangers of in-person voting, dangers that apparently don't exist at violent protests or high-end hair salons. On a positive note, I'm pleased again to welcome Secretary Ashcroft from my home state and discuss the success he's experiencing with voter participation and election integrity. Under his leadership, Missouri has strengthened voter ID laws while experiencing record voter turnout. More Missourians are voting, and they're doing it safely and in person. Secretary Ashcroft, you mentioned your testimony that in March 2020 presidential primary, that Missouri saw a 16% increase in voter participation, the highest amount the state has ever had with an incumbent president on the ticket. Was this due to an expansion of mail-in ballots?
No, it was not. It was participation of individuals feeling safe to vote in person.
Many of the members of this committee say that if you increase election security, you suppress voters. Of course, that's not the case in Missouri. Will you discuss what the 2016 voter ID law did for voter participation?
Yes, in 2016, the people of the state passed a constitutional amendment to allow a photo ID to be required for voters. Since that law has been passed in Missouri, we provide free photo IDs to individuals that need them, along with the underlying document. And we no longer have people being turned away when they vote because they can't prove their identity. Every election, we have at least a handful of people that would have been turned away under the old law, but now they're allowed to vote, and their vote counts.
One of the things that mail-in ballots, it seems that there's an increase in the number of folks that participate that way. Do you believe that this will cause a delay in the election results?
It is entirely possible. We're doing everything we can to stop that delay from occurring, but they have to. They take more time to count. We could be waiting days.
What kind of actions are you taking, or things that you are thinking about to be able to minimize that delay?
We are working to make sure that we have more two-person teams, a Republican and a Democrat, to go through those ballots that are mailed in, and we're having those teams start at the limit 5 days before the election to start going through them. But depending on what we see, we may have results delayed.
Do you believe, as the top election authority in our state, and as Ranking Member Scalise mentioned a minute ago, you were the chairman of the Secretary of State's organization, do you believe that by the delaying the election results, that this would people would lose faith in the integrity of our voting process?
Yes, I do. And when they do that, they're less likely to participate. So when we scare people needlessly, we cause voter disenfranchisement.
You know, one of the things a while ago there was, I think you mentioned that there were 2 to 3% of the mail-in votes are rejected. That would seem to make a pretty good case for voting in person if there's a problem with the process somewhere something goes wrong in that.
We see that nationwide. The best way to make sure your vote counts is to vote in person. Not only do you have to worry about notarization or signature or sending it to the right place or the post office, but if there's a problem with your ballot with in-person voting, you may correct it.
You know, one of the concerns I have a while ago, Ranking Member Scalise also made the comment, there's 378 counties that have more registered voters than they have citizens. As the chairman of that secretariat group, what was the is there a program in place? Are there concerns? What was the action, if any, was taken by your group to try and find a way to minimize that situation?
I know that individual secretaries of state, at least in my party, have been working to make sure that voter rolls are clean so that the experience on election day is as fast and easy for voters as possible.
Well, one last comment here. I know that I guess a question. With regards to fraud and mail-in ballots, I guess in Mississippi, in Georgia, I guess it was, they had about 1,000 people that had a problem with voter fraud, voted twice on the mail-in. Is that correct? Is that information you had as well?
There's always a concern with that. We had an election overturned 4 years ago where the candidate that supposedly lost by 3%. The judge looked at all the fraud in the absentee ballots. They held the new election, and the previous loser won with 75% of the vote.
One of the comments that was made by the chairman a while ago, it's more likely to be struck by lightning than have mail-in fraud. I'm not sure that's quite right unless we have a lot of folks getting struck by lightning in the state of Missouri and across the country. You, Mr. Chairman?
Maybe a lot of people get hit by lightning in South Carolina. I don't know.
With that, I yield back.